remember days when we were young, wild and free. There wasn't a moment where you weren't hanging next to me. We had some ups and downs, but we made it through the storm. Those cool September nights by the fire, keeping warm. We were kissing in the back of my truck. You know we never really gave too much. We were young and reckless, nothing stopped us 'cause you were my girl. Looking back, wasn't it fun?
Non-stop Rock Talk with Tyson Bryden. Welcome to Non-stop Rock Talk. I am your host, Tyson Bryden. On today's show, I'm very happy to welcome Charles V. Rox Vaccaro. Welcome, Charles. How is it going?
I'm very good, Tyson. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me tonight.
You're very welcome. Thanks for joining me. I'm kind of excited to talk to you. I've got some stuff going back in your past that I wasn't aware of until I started doing research for our interview. So, and I'm sure you know what that is, but we'll get to that. Now, I checked out your video for the song "Kissing." So you've kind of, with this stuff, I guess it'd be your solo stuff, is kind of more of a country vibe. But I am told that you were a real rocker.
Yes, well, I'm still a real rocker. Just we the age kicked in and we got a haircut and all that stuff. Right. But the back in the day when I was doing rock stuff, I was in a hair metal band called Lipstick, and it was at the time of Much Music, and here in Quebec it was Music Plus and MTV, so it was the big productions and the shows with the lights and all that stuff. Yeah. But I've always aspired to be a songwriter, and so a few years ago I got back into music that way, because I kind of stopped performing and stuff, and then the band broke up a long time ago. And so the country twist, a lot of people ask me why did I go country. And it's because the music we were writing before or listening to before was the rock stuff like Cinderella and Poison and the ballads were all if you changed the instruments a little bit, you would have had a country song, So I did it the other way around this time, and the songs, those are the songs I write, but you add some twangy guitar, some banjos, sing it a little different, and it becomes country influenced, and you catch that vibe.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because you mentioned Poison, and I'm just thinking, like, Every Rose has its thorn probably could have been a country hit.
Yeah, or Last Train.
Yeah, by Cinderella.
From Cinderella.
Yeah.
Everything Bon Jovi, Dead or Alive.
Oh, absolutely.
Back in the day, it got labeled hair metal or hair rock or AOR. But had it been launched into the country genre with maybe a different kind of vocal, as far as launching it vocally differently,
it could have been.
For me, is one of maybe would have been an ultimate country song, or a lot of Aerosmith ballads.
Yes, and I seem to recall that "I Don't Want to Miss a Thing" was actually a country hit, or was a country song before they did it, right? So so there is. I totally agree. There is lots of crossover from that era to country. I mean, when you think of Bon Jovi, for instance, not just Wanted, Blaze of Glory, and then Stick to Your Guns off in New Jersey. There's a whole bunch, there's a whole array. He was kind of...
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? There was a whole bunch of stuff that Bon Jovi was doing that and my dad was a big country guy, so I'd go buy the Bon Jovi albums, and I'd be like, Dad, check this out. And I go, I think it's kind of country. And he go, yeah, right, whatever. He wouldn't give me the time of day.
The old country's different.
Yeah.
Right? You had, John Denver and
Willie Nelson.
Yeah, now I mean it really got commercialized. I don't know the names of a lot of the younger bands, but you know they also put hip hop in there and some programming and made it more electronic. But at the end of the day, it's music. I mean, you got a guy from Nashville that's got the twang in his voice, and you know he'll sing a rock song and he'll sound like he's from Nashville, or you know. So there's a lot of that. But I mean, the writing stuff, yeah. I mean, you know, there was. Which song was it? I Swear from Boys to Men. I think.
Yeah.
That was written by a huge country Nashville older guy back in the day.
See that.
You know, and then they went. You know, they produced it to be, you know, R&B with 4 black guys just belting it out vocally. They killed it. You know.
Yeah.
And it became like a big hit on Billboard as a commercial R&B track. So it you know, country's what? Storytelling, right? It's storytelling. The you know, we have those 7 chords and we, you know, they have all these combinations, and then whoever's behind the production, whether it's the actual artist or his team, then you could take that anywhere. You know?
Right. Now getting to the kissing video, I did mention that. I believe in the intro as you, and I was reading the YouTube comments as I was watching the video. So you pull around the corner in a Honda Civic. Would that be your wife sitting in the passenger seat?
Yes.
That was cool. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Right on.
Thank you.
But I mean, in terms of the concept of the song and the video, there's more of a looking into the past, it seems. Kind of give me some insight into that song and how it is portrayed in the video.
Well, in this video, I don't know if you saw my last release. It's called Can't Stop Running.
Yes, I did.
And that's my son coming down
in the skateboard. Yep.
And he plays young me. And then the old man is old me. And that's a whole other conversation. But I'm kind of keeping it in the family because it's fun and I'm older now. I'm just having some fun too. And the thing going in the past, you know, I think now I write differently. And I look back on how and whatever's been going on the past year and a half with the pandemic and how we've been kind of isolated a little bit from seeing our friends and our family and stuff. You know, I've been reflecting on the past, and there's been a lot of negativity in the world, you know, mostly on social media. But if you look at yourself, like myself, you know, I think I've had a nice life, and we always go back to our youth, right?
True.
So our first, you know, Lipstick, when I was in Lipstick, our one of our songs is called First Kiss. So our first kiss, going back, reminiscing and you know, enjoying all the memories that brought you to where you are today in your life, my life.
Yeah.
You know, so all these, you know, and the song started off as a dare. You know, where my producer called me one day and says, you know, let's kick it up a notch because we got too many ballads on the future EP that's going to hopefully come out in the new year. And I was doing some chores and I'm like, okay, give me an hour. But I was joking. I was like, you know, give me an hour. I'll write you something, right? Yeah. So I came downstairs and the song was written really in like 20, 25 minutes.
Wow.
The story, right? So I don't know. I went back into my subconscious or something, and I, you know, and I'm from Montreal, so it's not like I own one of those trucks or I grew up in a barn or a farm or, you know, so it was like I was really creating a story, and I think from what my friends have told me and professionals, I captured the story of that cute, you know, your first girlfriend, and they happen to still be together today. Yeah. And they probably have a family, and they survive all the criticism and all the ups and downs that people go through relationships. So I think it's a happy song. You know, it's a song of hope.
It's positive. It's very positive.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Now, you mentioned the truck. I have to ask about that truck in the video. Yeah. So that obviously does not belong to you.
No, I wish it did. So I put a post on Facebook, and I put a couple of old trucks like that, few photos. Yeah. And I was looking for really to recreate Mater somewhat from Cars.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted
Made it,
that
yeah,
because
yeah.
I envisioned his voice, you know, like
Yeah.
the voice of the truck. And so I put an ad and said, does anybody know anybody who knows anybody, or actually, does anybody know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that would own something like this? So lo and behold, after a few posts, some people send me their pickup truck, nice, beautiful stuff, but they were more souped up, more, you know, show cars, modern show cars, you know. And then my friend Mike says, hey, I got my friend Rob, he owns this one.
Cool.
So I said, okay, great. I fell in love with it. And then I showed my director. Of course, he fell in love with it too, because it was like perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. There couldn't have been a more perfect truck that I would have imagined. The closest thing to that Mater character, you know.
Yeah.
And so I called Rob. He's now my friend. I don't know his family name, but Rob. And I said, hey, Mike told me to call you. And he's like, hey, man, sure, you know. And I said, look, we don't really have a budget. We're working on favors and stuff. And he was so nice. He was so cool to donate his time and his truck. And he picked that up from the United States, I think. And that look, it's, you know, I learned a few things too. It's called patina. So that's a patina look.
Ah,
and
okay.
and if you go on Instagram, there's also F100 and F100 only, and they have other versions of that truck that they post stuff. So it you know, I learned a few things too on that vehicle. But what a beautiful, you know, thing with the sunsets that we captured, and that's my director's backyard. So he's got like some farmland happening. And we just captured the sunsets for the photo shoots as well. So it was just beautiful.
Yeah, that video looks really well done. I mean, the truck is a nice touch because, like you said it was perfect. And when I watched it, I was like, man, that is a beautiful truck, and it really set the tone and the mood of the story, which I thought, I mean, maybe some people would see that and they wouldn't think that, but as I was watching it, I'm thinking, geez, it really says a lot in the whole theme of the story of the song.
Well, with Marco, who's Marco Yamateo, before we had actually had the truck, we were looking for a young couple. We were looking for a couple because at that age group, you know, it's kind of hard to find actors that you know, they have some kind of chemistry that they'll get on that day, because, you know, we didn't have time to rehearse and stuff. And then finally, you know, we had found the truck before, but then finally we found Selena and Samuel to play the parts. But with Marco, it was like we discussed many things, you know, and it was just, I just wanted some cute flirting. You know, I didn't want it to be about an actual kiss. I didn't want that, because we know that happened, right? We know that's you know, and then that could have been, you know, misinterpreted differently. But we discussed all these things, and for Marco, his objective was to have a great flow, which he captured, but that sunset, that country farm, you know, and the couple, you know, they're really young, so there was that flirtiness, that innocence, that, you know, and that's what we wanted, you know. And then near the end of production, I said, Marco, you know what? Let's add in, you know, my wife in there. You know, us driving, like, you know, we you know, we're here. Yeah. We're still alive as a couple, you know.
Yeah, and I liked how that went. I thought that was cool because it's just a brief 10 seconds in the beginning of the video, and then you appear with your guitar and the song starts. I thought that was it was really well done.
Well, people won't catch that unless they listen to this our conversation. But there's kind of like a swoosh before the song starts.
Right.
So that's where I got the idea, because I said, you know, it could look like we're going back in time right after that almost kiss, and it goes whoosh, right.
That's cool. And I like that concept.
So that's where I got that, you know, let's do something like Back to the Future or Back to the Past, or you know.
Yeah, and that's what I got from it, actually, to be honest with you, because it kind of does go. It's kind of that picture's painted in your mind that you've just gone back to the future. And I mean, the truck it plays into that nicely because it is an old truck. So you're thinking, okay, this is probably going back in time at some point. Very well done. Now let's discuss your video for Can't Stop Running. You mentioned the young boy on the skateboard with the guitar on his back is your son. But you mentioned, you said your father as well is in the video?
No, the old man.
Old man is you. That's
my director's grandfather. He's me when I'm old.
Okay. And by the way, that guitar that you're playing as a young boy, that is a really nice guitar.
Thank you. It's not mine. It belongs to one of my best friends who owns a music store in Montreal here called Kit's Music Store. And he collects all these. He sells them. So he lent it to me for the video. So that was... if I'm correct, I think he told me it's like early 50s.
That's very cool. That's very cool. Now you said there is more to that video than, the boy. Pretty much the concept is you older, you younger, and then you at the time. Yeah.
Well, the story, that song is about 5 years old. Mm-hmm. And all this, again, I started releasing stuff because I was home for a few months because we got shut down because of COVID. So I went in my hard drive and I was bored. I'm home doing nothing. And I'm like, I got to get this stuff out, no matter what. I mean, it's part of me. And so instead of leaving it in the hard drive, why not have some fun with it, right? Mm. And I have just a great network of friends that they've been so supportive. But the story is about a guy, which is pretty much all of us, or a girl, that lives in a small town and he aspires to leave. He always wants to leave that small town and go see the big lights and, I don't know, become famous or just go live somewhere where there's more noise. And he never does. And that's really the story, So it's like, I can't stop running away from here,
Okay, gotcha.
So if you got to listen to the lyrics to catch the whole vibe of what that means. And that's what it means. It's we all, and I've heard established people, accomplished people, people with money, there's always something, hey man, I wish, period. And, everybody wishes they had done something. I meet a few guys and it's like, man, I wish I had started playing guitar at your age. And they're like 50 now. And they're scared because you don't want to start playing guitar at 50. But there's always that, I should have left. What if I left? What if, but you can because you have your family, you have your obligations, you have your,
Yeah, I remember being young in my teenager years and being, which is quite a long time ago, but, and being a musician, being a guitar player and saying, you know what, I'm going to move to LA. Yeah. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I want to do. Well, that never happened, but that's what my dream always was, that, everybody in school was talking about, going off to college and this, and I'm like, no, I'm going to go to the States. That's what I want to do. But somehow it just never happened because reality set in and it's like, well, how am I going to do this? And I got to get a job.
Yeah.
So, right.
Yeah. So you're gonna. I never moved to LA. I had a couple of chances, but it was that. Like, why? What's waiting for me there? There was no plan. So, some people have gone without a plan, and it worked out because as they were there, then they had to man up and when they became actors or what, or they just lived there, and they're happy doing that. But I mean, there was never a plan for me but that was my dream too. I'm going to go to LA and we're going to take over and, we're going to have some fun there, but that didn't happen.
And that's, and I mean, so here I am today and I'm still in Canada and I'm happy to be here. So, no regrets. It is what it is.
None.
Exactly. Now let's go to the track Massive Destruction, which I found on YouTube and I'm thinking, I'm like, wow, this is like a total different direction, but it's more of it's heavy, it's an instrumental track, shows a different side. It's more your guitar playing than you as a songwriter singer. Tell me about that one.
Okay, well, I'm naturally a songwriter, and then it's left to how people perceive that, right?
Yeah.
And I've been getting good reactions back in the day and still today. And I pretty much, I grew up with a lot of different influences, right? So, as a kid, I grew up I'm first generation Canadian. So with Italian music, folkloric or, the 60s. And then, I was introduced to Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles, Santana by my uncle, Leo. And I grew up as a teenager. Besides that, I started growing my hair really long, and I was sporting Ozzy Osbourne T-shirts and Queensrÿche back in the day. Those, I was a huge fan of the Police. I was, Tears for Fears, and David Bowie, back then, and of course, all the guitar players, but different, Stevie Ray Vaughan, to Metallica. But my guys, my favorite, the guys that I would relate to, okay, because a lot of people say I sound like, or when they speak, I don't sound like them or play like them. And they're just phenomenal. But Jimmy Page is a guy I understood, and back in the day, Lipstick, when we weren't Lipstick, we were like a Zeppelin tribute, somewhat. We weren't a full-fledged Zeppelin tribute, but we were pretty good at it. And the guy that I relate to most, the two guys that I relate to most would be Santana and Clapton, and which out of there came out the guy I admired during the 80s, which was Richie Sambora. So, I'm not was never a Flash Eddie Van Halen kind of player. So more bluesy with, nice solos, in tune, great melodies. So I'm a guitar player because that's the instrument I loved since I could remember. But the gift of songwriting came to me as well. So there's no, like I said before, you could take your song anywhere, and make it R&B or make it country or make it rock, depending how you produce it. Not all songs, but so Massive Destruction was a display of me playing guitar, but I was asked to write, which they didn't use, so I'm hoping somebody use it, by a minor hockey league here, hockey team here, for when the players come out. So that's where that came out, and I came up with that melody, where the guitar repeats that melody a few times over in the song, and then we added the big drums with the big bass drum and the bass line, and that's and I put it on Spotify just because.
Yeah,
I didn't really push it to anybody, but it was written for when the hockey team comes out, before they sing the national anthem,
That's cool.
And, yeah.
That's very cool. Now you did just mention Lipstick, but I would like to talk about them. Now, you guys opened for Firehouse back in the day, I seen.
Firehouse, here in Montreal.
Yeah.
We opened up also, if you remember, Slick Toxic.
Yes.
Which was from Toronto. They probably won't remember. This is like 1991, 92.
Right. Yeah.
And we opened up 2 nights for Winger in Pennsylvania.
Cool. That's cool.
And that was like, I froze. I was 18, 19, and I'm in the same, like, I played volleyball with Red Beach that week with Rod Morgenstein and the other guitar player. And it was just like, I was like meeting the girl of your dreams, and you don't know what to say because this guy is like guitar monster, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm opening up for Red Beach, and it wasn't even a Winger. I'm opening up for Red Beach, right? So we opened up for Winger, and then we did a whole bunch of other shows in the States, and one of the bands that got signed that we played with at a local bar, like the rock bars that we'd have back in the day, Trickster. So we didn't open up for Trickster, but we were part of like a a 6-band evening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and there was, we played CBGBs
Cool.
as ourselves,
That's
just
awesome.
by ourselves, and that, for a lot of people that go back, they know that's like, it was a staple of music
Yes.
history in New York City, which closed down. And everybody came out of there: the Sex Pistols, Guns N' Roses,
The Ramones.
pretty much. Yeah, the Ramones, and it was just, I didn't know what that meant at the time.
Yeah.
Until when it closed down a few years ago, or more than a few years ago. So there's a lot of history that I got to experience through my journey with music, with the band, with my band Lipstick, and I was a co-founder, and that started with 4 guys who lived streets away from each other. We're all the same age except Paul, our singer. He's a bit older, and he was my back neighbor. Paul was my back neighbor, Paul Galati, and Johnny DeFazio. This is the original band, and Elio. We went to high school together, so we were all in the same grade. We're like, hey, why don't we start a band? And it's like, oh, okay, man. So we started the band, and lo and behold, we started writing some good stuff. We got better on our instruments, and then we always had a business savvy, and we stuck together, and we did a couple of videos, which were playing here on Music Plus, which was Much Music for Quebec.
Yep.
And one summer, my singer goes to New Jersey with my drummer for vacation with some other friends, and I couldn't go. And he met a girl that was a hairdresser who did hair for a band in Pennsylvania, and their manager was Wade Perry, which at that moment didn't mean anything, right?
Yeah.
But Wade Perry was Whitney Houston's tour accountant.
Oh, okay.
So, and he was managing bands on the side for himself. So when he came back, Paul was very excited, of course. He's like, I met this girl, and all this is happening, and we're gonna send them our press kit. And back then there was no EPK; it was all photocopies, and you put an envelope with a stamp, and hopefully somebody wrote back or called you. And lo and behold, he fell in love with us, and he came to see us in Montreal 3-4 times, and we would always prepare a showcase for him. And in the end, he said, "You know what? I'm not going to manage you. I'm going to take you to Whitney's office, and the team there is going to take care of you guys." So she owned her own company called Nippy Inc., which was ran by her dad, and her team was our management crew at the time.
Wow.
And so that's how I got to experience playing again CBGB, the Le Marquis, the Cat Club in New York, is clubs in New Jersey with Trickster and Pennsylvania, and doing the whole East Coast thing a couple of weeks at a time. And there was a lot of history to it at the time, because it was in the middle of the Gulf War while that was happening. So, it was nice to be in the States at the time, and everybody was very welcoming and united.
Yeah.
And so, the big question everybody has, what happened, right? Well, the month or so before we had to really showcase for the big companies, Nirvana hit #1 on Billboard.
Oh, you say no more.
Yeah, and that was a big jolt to anybody and everybody that was aspiring to be the next Motley Crue,
Yeah.
or Poison. And now that we see, and I didn't get that music. I didn't. And still today, my saying, and I mean, God bless them. I mean, it's Nirvana. They're, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and they're iconic, and they did revolutionize music, and they brought a new sound for the kids of that era. that for me, I always say that it's just funny that the best thing Nirvana ever made was David Grohl.
That's so true. I always say that too.
That's me, yeah.
Right.
But God bless them, and and then out of there came Alice in Chains and just a whole bunch of other. But again, I say this at a lot of, I get asked a lot, so it was also geographic, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say you were aspiring at the time to move to LA, right? It didn't matter because the whole music industry moved to Seattle.
That's right. Right? And around that time, by that time, I was probably, when I would have went to LA was around 91 or 92. So I would have got there and I would have been, it would have
like
been
us.
Fun. Yeah, well, exactly.
We at 91, end of 92, that's when we trickled away and it was over. So at the same time.
Yeah.
So the thing is, besides geographical, it was also a movement, a different culture, a different, and I don't mean this in any way, shape, or form in a bad way. A lot of these guys were, I don't know, heroin. I don't know. Like a lot of these guys didn't live a long time.
No.
And I don't like saying that because I don't mean that in a bad way, like I said, but it was a culture. It was a geographic and cultural. And so the reason I'm saying this is because a lot of people said, hey, why don't you guys start writing that way? Why don't you change your vibe? And I say, you can't just change your vibe. These guys lived there. They grew up there. Like you couldn't have had David Lee Roth come out of Montreal.
No.
I mean,
yeah.
Like, that's a guy that came out of LA, Vince Neil, these guys, they're not guys that, you don't just move to Seattle and become the next Nirvana,
No.
or
yeah, it's more or less a product.
Alice in Chains.
A product of your surroundings, right?
Yeah, they were part of, like in the 70s, right?
Right.
You had, Andy Summers, Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, Jimmy Page, Keith Richards, and a whole bunch of other guys. They were all from the same neighborhoods. If you read the books, we don't see that visually, but if you start reading some of their biographies, they bump into each other.
Yeah.
They knew each other. They were all friends, and these guys all became mega like staples in the rock.
That's crazy, right?
World. There's that story which is a bit long, but I'll short it. There was a Les Paul that Andy Summers owned, and Eric Clapton used to bug him, sell it to me, right? And Andy's like, just go buy your own. There's another one at the store, right? So Clapton bought that one, and it got stolen, right? Oh. And then he starts bugging Andy Summers again. I want your guitar. So Andy Summers finally gives in and sells it to him, and that's the guitar on the first Cream album.
Oh wow!
So that guitar's worth like, I don't know, $100 million.
Priceless, right?
That's
crazy.
But
man.
It's not even. Yeah, like the guitar Andy Summers owned that he sold to Clapton was recording the first Cream album. So it's that, so you can't, like for me, at first, I don't think I was angry, but I was disappointed. Mm-hmm. I was, what do I do next? What do I do? Like, how do you come out of that? Because, it's not like some bands are like, okay, I'm going to start over, whatever. Like our manager was Whitney Houston. So how do you catch that train twice?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's true, man.
At the time,
true. That's a once in a lifetime, right?
And at that time, there was no Celine yet. There was no Mariah Carey just came out. There was no Britney Spears. There was her, Barbara Streisand. She was it. There was no Bobby Brown yet. She hadn't done movies yet. She was like the thing that was the lady who legally represented us. So they could have called somebody on the moon and they would have answered, but they couldn't save us at that time. It was just that's how impacted the music industry was, you know. And having said that, Nirvana's career was also short-lived, because then there was a whole different thing that happened with the pop, and all the girls started to come out, the Christina Aguilera's and you know, Britney Spears,
yeah.
and Celine, of course, and
Spice
Girls. So yeah, Spice Girls. So it became, you know, an open market for everyone, you know. Mm-hmm. So here we are, no regrets.
Yeah, no
regrets. You know, who knows what would have come out of that, right? You know.
Well, exactly. Now I did see a demo tape on your YouTube page. It looked like a demo tape. It said lipstick. It would kind of look. I would assume that's very hard to find.
It's funny you bring that up, because I did you read about that?
No, I didn't. I saw the tape and I was like, oh, that's interesting.
So we were all first generation Canadian from Italian parents.
Yeah.
So that's one. Two, I love Italy. Like, I just love Italy, right? That's a place I would move to, you know, on the flip of a dime, right? So in 2014, I'm home and I'm doing some paperwork, and my Facebook starts pinging, and it was a Wednesday. And you know, I'm getting all these invitations, like 3 or 4 in a row, like in a matter of less than a minute, and they're all Italian names, and I'm like, what's going on, right? So I see they're from Italy, and I accept, right? But I don't know why I'm accepting. I'm just curious now, because you know, it wasn't like, you know, the Italy thing had something to do with it. So as soon as I accept, one guy writes to me, "Hey, are you the guitar player of Lipstick?" And I'm like, "Yes." Who wants to know? Because now I think somebody's pranking me, right? Because
right.
You know, this Lipstick broke up in 1992, 93, and now I'm 2014. Like, you know, we're all family guys, we're married. Like, who's asking? You know, but people know that of us, right? Locally and I guess abroad. So he says, "We found you." So I'm like, what does that mean, right? We found you. So now I'm like, somebody's screwing with me. And how do I handle this? Because what if they're not, you know, I don't want to be, you know, angry or obnoxious. So anyways, within that hour, I realized that there's a radio station in Trieste, which is north of Italy. And every Wednesday they have AOR Wednesday, and they play anything they could get their hands on, right. You know, Collector. So our CD, so that day they played one of our songs, and you know, some guys listening that religiously listen to that show every Wednesday took it upon themselves to look for one of us, you know, and they found me. And so now I'm becoming, in the next week, I'm becoming friends with 20, 30, 40 people, which I am friends still today.
Yeah.
And they're all from Italy, right? And some are from Australia, some from Sweden, you know, the AOR guys, right? So now they're asking me, do you have any of these CDs, right? So the CD was a 4-song demo, which was financed by Whitney Houston, and we only printed 2,000, which was to give out to labels and sell a few at $10 a piece back in the day. And we were the first unsigned band in Montreal to have a CD.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
Everybody was still, So the CDs had just come out, like it was a couple of years. So most of them were given out in the US, and some friends, family, like very rare, right? So, and we ran out, of course, it was only 2,000 units. So, you know, I start to find out that these things are worth $800 US.
Whoa.
If you find one.
Yeah.
If you find one.
Yeah.
So I found a couple with friends, some friends, and they made some money. And some guy in Australia bought 2. One guy in Sweden bought 1. And my friends made more money selling my CD
And you
in
did?
one single transaction than I ever earned my whole life playing music. So it was kind of ironic and funny,
That's
but it was
hilarious.
great
Yeah.
because, 20 years later, it wasn't a complete, how can I say this? Not failure, because it was never a failure, but it wasn't like we've been acknowledged that
Mhm.
we exist,
That's
and
cool.
and that was the biggest compliment ever.
Yeah.
That, and then it was coupled with that it's from our motherland, where
Yeah,
our
that's
parents left.
yeah.
So it's crazy, and if you want to check it out, Dennis Albello, he's the guy who keeps it all together because he's got his own web magazine called Melodic
Mhm.
Rock
Okay.
.it
Okay.
.it instead of .com. So Melodic Rock .it,
IT.
and and these guys, up to until 2 years ago, before COVID, they were hosting the biggest shows. Striper and Winger and Winger and I said that already. And White Snake, in Italy.
Yeah.
And they have that week, and they're also in cahoots with the cruise that happens every year.
Oh, okay.
In the States, and it just crazy nice, because at the end, once they found out that I wasn't this guy that they found, I'm just a guy, because we are today with social media, everybody's normal, right? Like
Exactly.
you follow
Yeah.
you follow Jimmy Page or Joe Perry or
Yeah.
they're just human. Back then they were extraterrestrial. For us, it was like,
Oh,
oh my
no
God,
kidding.
Robert Plant. Now
Yeah.
he's just a guy because of social media and the way we communicate. But so I become friends with some of these guys, and then I got the opportunity to record some acoustic tracks for an Italian project, who I think their singer is Swedish, and they asked me to record acoustic guitars for them on one of their tracks. So it was like, wow, this is nice. And it was, across the ocean, here we are, we're working and we're having some fun. So that's the story with the CD.
That's pretty cool.
So no, I don't have any. I have one. It's in my frame, and I'm never going to sell
Oh,
it.
I was going to ask you if you had one yourself.
Yeah.
And you do. That's
each
good.
have one, I believe. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so on that CD were the two songs from the videos on that CD.
Two songs and two other songs that had no
Okay.
videos.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, but that was like a teaser for the labels to see what there was going to be other stuff, which there was.
Yeah.
It just never got released.
Never got
So,
released. So those two songs were "I Want You" and "You're All I Need." Is
yeah,
that right?
yeah.
I love the
Yeah.
video. I
And
love
the next
them.
one.
I love them. I listened to them this morning. And,
Thank you.
And I was
Thank
like, I love this. I mean, if I had known about it back then, I would have been all over that. Because that's what I was listening to, right? Well, that's still what I listen to be honest with you. But yeah, no, it was and the videos look great too. I was like, man, these guys look like they were, you guys looked the real deal, like one of the bands. Obviously you're from the era, but
Yeah.
you would have fit well on MTV, that's for sure.
Oh, but that's what we were aspiring to be.
Yeah.
That's what we were practicing to be. And today it happens in bigger masses, because of social media again. But, we had to keep a discipline, it wasn't all fun. We were rehearsing 5-6 nights a week.
Yep.
And then the weeks we were performing, then we were performing, but we were still practicing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? Yeah. And then, Paul being older, he had already finished, university, and he had that business sense more developed, but we were all on the same track. And then we had a second version of Lipstick because other stuff happened, but, it was always the performing, the practicing, was fun. The writing was fun, but there was also, thanks, you're naturally born with this. We had a business savvy,
Right.
and we sold T-shirts. We financed our projects because they weren't free. Those videos, back then they were $5,000.
Yeah.
And we had friends again helping us, but it wasn't given to us, so we had to pay for it. So we were structured, we were organized. So if we played a gig and we each got, let's say at the end of it, $200 each, we wouldn't keep it and buy beer. We'd throw it in a bank account and pay for the video, or whatever, pins, stuff. And so that's, today is the same thing. You gotta, it's your business. If you wanna, for younger people, if you wanna become famous, nobody's gonna guarantee you that, but you could be a working musician.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
You could. It's a little harder today because of the streaming and the paybacks, and that you're not physically selling stuff unless you're selling merchandise. But
Yep.
before we had the luxury of selling an actual CD
Yep.
or an album or a cassette, and that was good income. That was, if you did it right, you weren't making millions of dollars, but
you were making money.
It was going to finance your next project, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a business. It's not about, oh my God, we played in front of 10,000 people. That was great, but that's over right the minute when it's over.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's a buzz, it's a drag. You're playing and it's over. So what's the next gig? You're not Guns N' Roses that's got a world tour coming. So
That's true.
you have to keep finding your work. You gotta reach out to your audience and you gotta build from there. And that's where we come from. That's where I come from.
Right.
Having a personal rapport with your fans, somewhat.
Yep.
Like we had when you're at the level we were, or I'm at now, it's easier because I can answer you back on Facebook tomorrow.
I know,
because I didn't get
great.
18. No, but I didn't get 18,000 messages. I got 5. Hey, thanks, Tyson.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I got
No, that's
10,
true too.
20.
Right.
But yeah, so that's how you build your audience. You gotta become somewhat friends, or establish a relationship and keep everybody up to date. And it doesn't have to always be about music or about your project or your next project. It's, hey man, how's it going? Stuff like that. You just keep it going.
Yes, that's so true.
Yep.
Now, I want to thank you for joining me today. Before I let you go,
this was awesome. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I had a great time, and it was great
You're
talking about the old days, and it's always interesting to hear band stories from, especially the early '90s, because music had changed. We mentioned Nirvana and how that whole Seattle thing came on, and how it affected bands. It doesn't matter what band you were at that time. If you were Warrant or you were Motley Crue, everybody was affected by it. Everybody was affected by Nirvana. Like it just because it changed the whole look of what music was at that time. And I thank you for sharing all that, because I'm always intrigued by those stories, because I remember myself back then and being this huge fan of that style of music, and I have to admit there were times where I was angry because I couldn't go to my local record store anymore and find the product by the bands that were still releasing music, and it was so frustrating. I had to go to Toronto. You'd have to go to HMV and go in an import section to find like, say, the new Slaughter album or something like that, right? So So I thank you.
Well, thank you. This was just awesome. And I want to give a shout out to Francesca at Fearless Sound.
Hi, Francesca.
My publicist, and for hooking us up. And
she does a great job.
Yeah, thank you. We'll keep in touch.
Absolutely.
And, if you want to keep me on after you click off.
Okay. Now, before I do let you go, though, maybe I should ask the details of where you can be found on the net, like, your website, your Facebook, all that stuff. Yes.
So Facebook, it's Charles V. Rox Vaccaro. And before the incidents with Italy, it was just Charles Vaccaro.
Okay.
But I added it back because you never know who's looking for you, right?
Yeah.
So that was my artist name from the days of lipstick, and it's still my artist name. But at one point I had to add it back because for people that were researching it, and now it makes sense again because I started releasing music. So Charles V. Rox Vaccaro on Facebook. Instagram, it's at VROX 777. That's the same for my Twitter. YouTube is Charles V. Rox Vaccaro.
Yep.
And what else is there? Spotify, Apple, anything that is a digital platform. My music is there, 2CD Baby. And I'm working on a website to launch soon. Just I want it to be a little interactive and more like this interview, talk about my history and just little stories. And more music's coming. We have a full, I think we have 6 or 7 on there. There's, I don't know if you heard Conte, which is my Italian track. It's on my YouTube.
I seen it on there.
Another, I also write in Italian. Another one I just finished recording and other stuff. And they're all going to be with that country flair. They're all going to relate to each other because it's an EP. And, music is music. It's beautiful and you could do whatever you want with it if you are truly in touch with your artistic self. You could take it anywhere you want, and I've been having some fun. I had let it go for a long time because life goes on, and but it's part of my life. My family supports me, as you see. I've throughout the years I collected a couple of nice pieces,
Very nice.
and we're here, and we have to enjoy what we like.
Perfect. That's awesome.
Like to do.
That's right.
And this interview was really great. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. I had a blast. So enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks, everyone. Keep listening.
Tired and torn, this is where I stand here all by myself. The seasons, they keep changing, and everything I see just stays the same. I've seen a million places, and all these empty faces, they look back at me. Been running around in circles, trying to catch my breath, but I don't know how. And I can't stop running away from here. Stop running away. Caught up in the small town, and time is standing still. My mind still lingers.